Welcome back, everyone. I hope your day has been good. I hope you've had an interesting time and you've managed to achieve those goals that we talked about first thing this morning. This session is about this stuff. It's about making sure that you get value. We are very well aware that for many of the people who come to this event, this represents a not insignificant component of the spend that they make on their development as L&D professionals over the course of the year. It's a chunk of money. We get that. Plus, you've got time out of the office and all the rest of it. So, it's difficult. So I wanted to talk about this stuff. For those of you who don't know who I am outside of the context of this is who I am, this is what I do. I spend a lot of time speaking at events and talking to people. But I also look after learning innovation for Husway International, and we primarily work within the area of verbal behaviours. More, should you wish it, on our website. So, what's our job in L&D? What do we do? We train people? No. We help people learn? No. What we do is we enable people to do things differently and do different things. That is our job. If people are not able to do something which is different as a result of the activities that we engage in, then we have not delivered on what our purpose is, and purpose seems to have been a pretty important word over the course of the day. So that's important to us. What do we do to enable people to do things differently and do things differently and do different things when they're back in the workplace? And this is part of learning at work. This is an event for L&D professionals to do some learning, to learn about what other people are doing, to learn about what other organizations' challenges are and how they've managed to address those. And so when we think about how we're going to develop that into value, we need to have a definition. And this is my definition of value. It is benefit minus cost. We've talked a little bit about what the costs are already. There's a chunk of money that you have expended to be here. There's travel. You might have stayed over somewhere. You are not in the office doing things that you could otherwise have been doing. That has a cost. We call it an opportunity cost. So how do we enable your organization to do things differently and to do different things? How do you do things differently and do different things, which delivers a benefit to you and to your organization, which is greater than the cost of being here? And if that sounds remarkably simple, that's because it is. This is what value is within organizations, okay? So what have we talked about over the course of the last 2 days that you might want to think about changing your approach or your behavior or taking new actions? We've talked about these things. Over the course of 2 days, we have covered all of these 16 topics, some of them more than once. So there should be a lot of stuff that you could do differently as a result of talking about those things and listening to others talk about their experience. Some of you have completed some of those, that little task that I gave you, which was to tell me what actions you were going to take. And here's a word cloud taken from that. So, without wishing to kind of beat about the bush, there are a few bullshit words up there, okay? I'm going to be genuinely honest with you. There's some stuff up here that's going to change the square root of not very much. That's one of them. And people go, oh, how can you say that? Engaging with people, that's all we're about, surely. No, we engage with the purpose of helping them to do things differently and do different things. It is a route to doing something. It is not doing something. And so one of the things that when you think about is when we're talking about actions, we're talking about skills, we're talking about courses, question mark, do we need as many of those? When we're talking about frameworks and impact, great word, we need to have a route of doing that. We need to have a process of taking that forward, and I am going to give you 5 steps. Simple as that. At the end of it, you will see that these 5 steps might have another purpose within your organization and within your role. But here's the 5 steps that I'm going to give you. Don't try and do it all. First one, yeah? Spreading yourself so thinly that you actually achieve nothing or very little in a number of areas is worse than doing nothing at all. Not least of which because it makes you frustrated. So try and focus on what's the most important thing that you want to do. What's that key thing that you go, do you know what? If we could do this, that would give us some real value, bearing in mind value equals benefit minus cost, yeah? So what are we going to achieve? What are we going to focus on? So trying to do too much is as bad as doing anything. Choose one thing, focus on it. Doesn't mean you forget all of the other things that you've talked about. It just means that you get some traction and say, look, I went on this conference. As a result, I've done this. As a result, we're able to do this. Now, can I have some support to go and do some other stuff that I also learned about at that conference? And that support is item number 2. But please, 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 please don't make the mistake of going back into work tomorrow or at the end of this week or the beginning of next and going, I heard this great idea. Because if there's one thing guaranteed to make the rest of your organization go, oh my God, it's somebody coming in going, I've heard this great idea. Yeah? Talk about not what it is, but what it does. Your organization has some opportunities. Your organization has some problems. Never talk about what you want to change without being able to place it within the context of dealing with the stuff that keep people awake at night. If I am worrying like a film star, you know how film stars worry, don't you? It's like middle of the night, they're lying on their bed somewhere, and they go like this. Because that's how we know they're worrying, yeah? So if you're worrying like a film star doing that, what's causing that? Yeah, what's giving you that worry, that anxiety? What problem is that? What about those opportunities? What's keeping you going in the middle of the night going, oh, we could do this, or we could do that, we could do this, we could do that? What are those things? Place your actions and gain your support from people by talking about where they are, not where you've been. Make it relevant to them. Okay? Number 3. Set implementation activities, implementation intentions. Anybody heard of Peter Gollwitzer? Peter Gollwitzer, as the name suggests, is a German academic. He's a psychologist. He worked at NYU and various other academic institutions. And he did a great study about implementation intentions. He compared them to SMART targets. And what he found was that SMART targets don't work. They don't help people change their behavior. What he found happened with implementation intentions, and he tracked this through research within organizations, at work, with people talking about work tasks and work behaviors, but he also dealt with people who were changing their diet or taking up exercise or slimming and losing weight. And what he found was that if people do this, they are significantly more likely to actually make the change to their behavior. So, for example, SMART targets, about 18% of SMART targets actually get implemented. About 69% of implementation intentions get implemented. So what that means is I am going to talk about my actions in the context of things that will happen within the workplace. So if I have this opportunity, I'm going to do this. If this problem occurs, I'm going to respond in this way. If I have the chance to design a new learning intervention, I am going to do this. Not, I'm going to do it on that one specifically, but actually, I'm going to take forward these new ideas, these new ways of working, the suggestions that I've heard from other people, and say, every time I have the opportunity to do this, I am at least going to run the rule over what I've learned at the World of Learning and go, do you know what? That bit will work here. That bit will work there. And don't forget, we've already got the support of our team and other people around us within the organization, whether those are in different functions or they are senior to us, so we can actually share that with them. Go, look, honestly, next time this happens, I'm going to do this. Are you on board for that? It will help you solve this problem or take this opportunity. And I'm just going to concentrate on this one thing because I think it'll be really important. Yeah? Review the action that you've taken. How many of you would consider yourself to be reflective, to engage in reflection? Okay, anybody who's not put their hand up at that point, think again, do it. It's important because we do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on the experience. John Dewey wrote that in 1938 because I am absolutely on the button with up-to-date stuff. Okay? This is what reflecting does. It allows us to make sense of what happened. And I'm going to share with you a model. I've shared it before on this stage at the World of Learning. I've shared it in a number of articles and books and blogs that I've written. But it actually works real well, and it's called the Rolf Reflective Practice, the Rolf Reflective Model. And everybody that I've spoken to about this, I have worked with 16, 17-year-olds with learning disabilities, and they get this. I have worked with chief executives of FTSE 100 companies, and they get this. And everybody in between gets this, except accountants. The only reason accountants don't get this is it's too simple, and they're going, where's the catch? There's got to be a catch here somewhere. There isn't a catch. It's this. What just happened? Describe it. So what? What are the implications of that? What have we learned from the experience? What do we need to do next because of the actions that have happened? And what next? What will I choose to do next? And if you want to know a little bit about Rolf is a nurse educator, and he developed this approach working within the emergency room or accident emergency within UK and European hospitals. What can we do in 2 minutes that we've got spare after we've dealt with this particular patient, which was difficult and unusual and stretched us, to capture what that experience taught us? We can do this. And I strongly advocate that you use this with the people with whom you work in learning and development. How many of you try to support people to coach their team members? People do that? A few people doing that? Yeah. Those are the 3 questions. Whatever else they do, if they're asking those 3 questions, that makes a significant improvement in the way that they coach if they're not doing anything at the moment. So you talk about all sorts of models and all sorts of approaches, but if you just get people to do that, that's great. Do you know what else it does? This is coaching yourself. Because it's so straightforward. Because it's simple. Because you can do it in a 3-minute conversation with yourself when you're going home, when you're waiting for a bus, when you're in the car driving somewhere, when you're sitting at your office thinking about waiting when the kettle's going to boil finally, all of that stuff. You can do this. What have I just done? So what? What am I going to do next as a result? You imagine the power of everybody in your organization doing that every time they come across something which is a bit weird, a bit odd, a bit new, a bit difficult. Or when they've punched the air after they've had a phone conversation with one of your customers. When they've come out of a meeting with their senior team and they've gone, yes! Imagine them saying that then and capturing that learning. You don't need to coach them anymore because they are now nirvana coaching themselves. Now, I'm not suggesting that you kill off coaching as a result of that, by the way, but what I am saying is this is an opportunity to take it to the next level. And then finally, I want you to measure impact. Why do I want you to measure impact? Because the job of learning at work is to enable people to do things differently and do different things. And if they are doing different things and doing things differently, you will be able to see it. You will be able to measure it. You'll be able to count how many times it happens. Did it work? How well? Was the outcome valuable? Remembering that value is this thing. And if we don't measure, if we don't count, if we don't try and put some kind of reasonable frame on what has happened, it's easy for people to say, oh yeah, that didn't work. It's easy to people to say, oh yeah, that benefit that we got, that was caused by something else, not about what you did or about what learning happened or about how we changed things. So measure when it happens, but don't ever, ever be fooled into turning that measurement into a target. Let me share something with you. Again, another piece of magnificent learning, which is absolutely up to date, and it is called Goodhart's Principle. And Goodhart's Principle is, as soon as a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be an effective measure. 1920, Goodhart said that. Would please somebody go and talk to the people in our current governments around the world and share that information with them, please, because 100 years later and they haven't caught up yet. Because as soon as you make it a target, you change people's behavior in order to achieve the target, so you're no longer measuring what they would do without it. Simple as that. So focus on the measure, but don't make it into targets. Focus on what's changed. So, 5 things you can do starting tomorrow. First of all, choose one thing. Secondly, gain support. Third, set implementation intentions, which is if this happens, I'm going to do that. Review what's happened using the Rolf reflective model. What, so what next? And measure impact. What changed? What actually happened? How did we enable people to do things differently and do different things? How did I do something differently or do a different thing? And what was the result of that? And for those of you who are thinking about applying for some kind of learning award over the course of the next 12 months, please ask the people for whom the learning that you are designing, which you're submitting an award, to do this. Because when I ask within that learning award for you to tell me what happened, what you learned from this and what the impact was, I do not want to know how many bums have been on how many seats in how many training rooms or how many times people have downloaded that video from your learning management system. Frankly, I really could not give a stuff. And I learned that the hard way. I was saying to somebody earlier that this is now I am in my 40th year in learning and development. As of March 2024, I first started in a learning and development role precisely 40 years ago. And when I was working as a head of a learning team within a local authority, I used to have the opportunity to go and speak to a special subcommittee which talked about staffing and capability. And every year, round about November time, I would walk into a room and I would go, well, Madam Chair, what we've managed to do in the last 12 months is we've had this many people attend this many courses, we've got this many certificates issued and all the rest of it, and they will go, marvellous, well done. Can you do the same next year except with 5% less money? And I would come out of that meeting floating on cloud 9, because some people went into those meetings giving similar figures and got nada for next year. So the fact that all I got was a small reduction in my budget when it was great. And then I went and tried to do that with other organisations, and they go, why are you telling me how many people turned up? I'm not interested. And I go, how do you mean you're not interested? When I went to the council, they were interested. Why aren't you interested? Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anybody learned anything. It just meant that they were in a room in possession of a pulse, we hope. What I care about is what did they do differently. And I commend it to you as the cornerstone of your practice as learning and development professionals. If we do not enable our organisations and the people within them to do things differently and do different things, we do not earn our place within the organisation or on the organisation's payroll. And I would like you all to stay on the organisation's payroll, please. Thank you very much. We've got time for a question or two if anybody's desperate to ask me anything. I can't ask myself one. Come on, this is bad. Honestly, it's the end of 2 long days. I get it. Don't worry about it. Thank you very much indeed for being here. If you want to follow up or ask me anything, if you want to ask anything after the event, these are my contact details in one form or another. Email is by far and away the best way of getting hold of me. But you'll find me on LinkedIn and you'll find me on all of those things as well. So do get in touch. If you've got anything to say about the event that you think, actually, I bet Robin would like to know that, you're right, I would. So tell me about that as well. I know there's all sorts of mechanisms for feedback, and there's QR codes coming out of everywhere saying, give us feedback on this, give us feedback on this. But if you just want to say, actually, do you know what, that was great, or this was rubbish, or whatever it is, please let me know. It's one way forward. We are, of course, planning the World of Learning Conference for October, which will be in Birmingham. You will be asked to talk about what it is that you liked, didn't like, and what you'd like to see on another event. Now, how many of you have ever been in hospital overnight? Yeah, a few people have been in hospital overnight. You remember that thing when you get the meal that somebody else ordered for the bed that you're in when you're in hospital? Well, this is a bit like that, I get it. So, but we do want to gain feedback from people. So if you've got some great ideas, if you've heard, seen somebody who you think I'd like to learn more about that or hear more from them, please let us know so that we can try and factor that into the continuous improvement of this event. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have a great journey home. I hope, despite all of the various problems with rail travel and all the rest of it within the UK over the course of the last couple of days, you managed to get back without any problems. And in the meantime, if you have got things to pick up, remember the Delegate Lounge is a good place to pick those things up. I wish you a safe journey home, and I hope some of the actions that you've thought about come to fruition and deliver real value to you and your organisations. Have a great day. Cheers. Thank you.